Revealed, the amazing mistake that led a struggling mom to an incredible life-changing surprise. Sarah Thompson stared out of her kitchen window, watching the sunlight disappear behind the horizon, blending into hues of gray. Each day felt like an uphill climb, with bills stacked high and the pressure of raising 2 kids weighing heavy on her chest. The clatter of dishes drowned out her thoughts as she moved toward the flickering light of the fridge. Another night of ramen, she muttered, stirring the pot with tense resolve. Between serving at the local diner and scrubbing floors at night, her script of life had become an endless loop, punctuated only by the soft dreams she had tucked away, alongside the half-finished novel she'd never published. After a grueling shift where her apron had become a quagmire of spilled coffee and greasy fingerprints, she reluctantly agreed to help Mrs. Hargrove, her elderly neighbor, sift through an attic filled with jungles of memories. As Sarah pushed aside dusty boxes marked, "Remember when," she stumbled upon an old trunk. The brass latch creaked open with a sigh, unveiling unpublished manuscripts that once inspired her dreams of writing. Those crumbled pages, nearly forgotten, ignited a spark within her heart even as exhaustion tugged at her limbs. Before she could think clearly, she became consumed by these words of another, a promised escape from the grind. Suddenly, the haunting familiarity of her own unrealized potential wrapped around her like the summer air, thick and suffocating. Lost in that moment of frenzy, she accidentally misplaced one of the manuscripts while cleaning. Panic clawed at her throat when she finally regained her bearings. What had she done? The echoes of her failure reverberated through her mind as she eyed the clock, knowing she had to rush home to Jake and Lily. Days later, the shadow of Kevin, the author's determined son, appeared at her door. "I'm looking for a manuscript," his voice held a note of skepticism that twisted the knife of her already frayed nerves. Confrontations churned in her stomach as she wrestled with the truth. How could she explain that she'd become the very person holding the key to his father's legacy? Kevin's piercing gaze scrutinized her, as if he could see the concealed dreams still flickering behind her tired eyes. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." As tensions escalated, so too did her self-doubt. He believed in her talent, yet she questioned it vehemently. Who was she to step into the luminous world of literature? With every word exchanged, the weight of expectation settled deeper in her bones. This was a chance, perhaps too fragile to hold, as whispers of her neighbors clawed at her confidence. Would pursuing her passion betray her children? Her mind raced, breaths measured and uneven as she mentally weighed her choices. Could she risk it? As her resolve cracked at the seams, Sarah stood at a precipice. A literary showcase that could reshape her life loomed ahead. Thoughts swirled chaotically. Could she take that leap? Craving self-acceptance, but paralyzed by worry of how her aspirations would collide with her responsibilities. In that tumultuous moment, she hugged the messy hopes of her children tightly. Could a mother seek anything for herself without losing everything she loved? Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, each beat echoing the conflicting voices inside her head. The literary showcase was not just a potential stepping stone, it felt like a void she had to leap into. What if she failed? What if this spark of inspiration turned out to be nothing more than embers of a fading dream? In the days leading up to the event, Sarah found herself spiraling into cycles of overthinking. Between shifts at the diner and managing her household, she discovered solace in the manuscripts she'd unearthed. Every stolen moment of writing transformed the chaos of reality into something exhilarating, a mesmerizing dance of words that began to weave together a story of her own. Yet, the shadows of doubt persisted. "The manuscript means nothing if I can't face him," she whispered into the nighttime silence, clutching the pages. Kevin's piercing gaze haunted her dreams, his skepticism swirling like storm clouds, further darkening the prospects of clarity. She feared his judgment even more than the uncertainty of her own narrative. With every gear ticking closer to the showcase, self-reflection became an unwelcome companion. Seated at her kitchen table during one restless night, she picked up her pen and scribbled furiously, a desperate attempt to articulate the muddled storm of emotions. I am more than my past mistakes, she wrote. This moment is not just for me, but for all the dreams I've buried. The ink barely dried when she stumbled into a new realization. Her children watched her, absorbing every lesson, every struggle. Mom, can you help me? Lily's innocent voice broke through Sarah's thoughts, pulling her back to reality. The innocence in her daughter's eyes reminded her that transparency birthed lessons over perfection. Sarah smiled, heart softening. If she could show her children resilience, perhaps chasing her ambitions wasn't a betrayal after all. In the subsequent days, she approached Kevin with affirming resolve, each interaction igniting friction yet clarity. I made a mistake, Kevin. But that doesn't define my path, she asserted one afternoon, her voice steadier than it had ever been. He regarded her with an intensity she hadn't expected, the flicker of understanding breaking through skepticism. You might surprise yourself, Sarah, he urged, softening his earlier edge and awakening a sense of possibility within her. Yet fear still loomed large, threatening to derail her nascent determination. A mere week before the showcase, Sarah dove into her manuscript. Revision after revision unfolded previously obscured truths about herself. Characters sprang to life, echoing her struggles, triumphs, and discontents, and she finally felt a deep connection to the world she was creating. The eve of the showcase, as Jessica and Lily slept, Sarah remained wide-eyed, staring at the pages she had printed. The clock ticked away the seconds, her heart racing alongside it. Would she deliver? Every exhaustion-laden moment had led her here, on the edge of something that could redefine her existence. In the silence of her home, she turned the pages, whispers of self-doubt still fluttering but now intertwined with courage. This is your story, Sarah. Own it, she muttered, reaching for the light of the moon. Tomorrow, she would step in front of a crowd, a reality sharper than any fear. Could she truly share her voice and claim the life she yearned for? As the question lingered, she knew she was at the threshold between fear and fulfillment, ready to grasp something that had always felt just out of reach. But what if stepping into the light meant confronting pain she'd long buried? The morning arrived cloaked in a muted luminance, as if the world held its breath in anticipation of Sarah's next move. She arose, the weight of her decisions seeped into every crevice of her being. The house, usually buzzing with the morning routine of her daughters, felt almost solemn. Clad in an outfit meant to exude confidence, she stared into the mirror, questioning the reflection that was so often eclipsed by doubts. Could she really embrace this new chapter of her life? As she entered the diner for her morning shift, her mind oscillated between the realities of serving coffee and updating her manuscript in her unseen hours. Each clink of the plates felt like a reminder of her other life, the one filled with unfulfilled dreams. She adjusted to the rhythm of the early shift, but with every order, every routine interaction, she unraveled the coils of anxiety twisting in her stomach. Instead of shifting into autopilot, she engaged, making jokes with customers, reconnecting with coworkers. Each laughter-filled moment breathed warmth into her resolve. The day dripped away, and the countdown loomed heavily over her shoulder. By the time she clocked out, dusk unspooled, cloaking the diner in dark elegance. Sarah's heart quickened as she felt the gravity of what lay ahead. At home, she found Jessica and Lily ensconced in a cozy after-dinner ritual of reading. The sight of them digging into tales of heroes and adventures crystallized her purpose for a moment. What are you reading about? She asked, pulling one of the well-worn books from her daughter's grasp. The hero who never gives up, Lily chimed, eyes sparkling with innocence and wisdom. The words struck a chord deep within Sarah. Here she was, moments away from embracing the hero's journey and yet still shackled by hesitation. The guilt of ambition whispered too loudly in her ear. Am I being selfish? She pondered, heart torn between her dreams and the mom she had always been. She wrestled with the idea that pursuing her desires might cause a ripple effect of disappointment in her children's eyes. But each thought only bolstered a new resolve. She pulled out her manuscript, encouraging the characters to rise and embody the truths she had fought so hard to conceal. As she read through the words she had crafted, courage swelled within her. This is my truth, she whispered, allowing her fears to unravel like pastry dough. The time crept closer, each tick of the clock amplifying the cacophony of emotion swelling in her chest. As she meticulously organized her notes, she thought about Kevin, about confrontations past. Would he understand what this meant for her? The question marked the doubt threading its way through her mind like an insistent melody. Yet, something had shifted inside her. The shadows of doubt no longer strangled her spirit. Through her entire writing journey, Sarah had unearthed buried pieces of herself, every character reflecting an aspect she had tried to hide. They whispered that she wasn't just a mother or a server, she was a storyteller. With the manuscript in one hand and her heart in the other, she chose to embrace that identity entirely. Each step toward the venue echoed with the steady beat of determination, her mind racing faster than her feet could carry her. Yet, in her chaotic thoughts, a flicker of realization emerged. What if this moment opened more than just the door to her future? What if, by standing before that audience, she shed more than just self-doubt? As she found herself at the threshold of the hall, the crisp air tinged with electric possibility, she inhaled deeply. The time had come to confront not only the judgment of others but the perceptions she had of herself. In that split second, the world around her faded and she thought, this is not just a performance, it's a reckoning. And right before stepping through, a recollection surged. The profound faces of her children, starry-eyed and believing, filled her with resolve. What if they witnessed this stand, this raw declaration of her truth? The door creaked open as she stepped into the spotlight, ready to uncover the profound impact this moment could catalyze for her entire life. She stood, breath caught in her throat, but with each heartbeat, newfound strength surged. The moment of truth awaited, ignited by the realization that she was both the story and its storyteller. What would happen when the audience bore witness to her journey? Would they embrace her revelation or retreat behind veils of skepticism? As Sarah stepped into the spotlight, the warmth of the stage lights enveloped her, countering the chill of uncertainty gnawing at her resolve. The buzz of an expectant audience washed over her. It felt like a living creature, pulsating with energy and questions. She forced her feet to ground themselves, though her mind raced in 1,000 directions. Would they understand her story? Could she effectively convey the years of doubt and longing she had buried beneath the daily routines of motherhood and mundane work? Taking a steadying breath, she remembered the laughter shared with the patrons at the diner, the camaraderie that had filled her with unexpected joy. If she could connect her life's moments of vulnerability to the larger truths she had written, perhaps they would resonate. Perhaps her message would not fall flat into silence. Good evening, everyone, she began, her voice steady yet reflective, breaking through the ambient noise. She paused, letting the words settle before stepping further into the narrative. I want to share with you a story about courage, not just my own, but the courage we all hold inside, waiting for the moment to be unveiled. As she spoke, Sarah noticed her nerves slowly dissipating. Each word transformed into a bridge connecting her internal journey of fear to the external world. She described her life, the dim light of early mornings at the diner, the soft giggles of her daughters, the quiet moments of frustration that mingled with overwhelming love. The more she peeled back the layers, revealing every imperfect aspect of her existence, the more her confidence grew. There were stumbles, words she jumbled, thoughts that momentarily flickered away into the ether, but Sarah embraced them. These were not failures, they were pieces of her authenticity spilling forth. She felt a shift as she recalled a time when insecurity locked her voice away. But I found myself wielding a pen, crafting stories that bandaged the wounds my heart carried. Through writing, I discovered my truth. Being a mother doesn't mean I must sacrifice my identity, it means I can elevate it. Her heart drummed with each honest revelation. The audience leaned in, a collective exhalation reverberating through the space. With every laugh and nod from strangers, doubt continued to unravel from her core. Each shared experience notably cracking open her fears of judgment became a conduit for silent connections. Yet, as Sarah reveled in newfound momentum, a familiar face suddenly materialized from the audience: Kevin. His expression held a myriad of emotions: surprise, tension, and perhaps, a fleeting flicker of admiration. But also something darker, a hint of skepticism or disappointment. The sight of him was a jolt, forcing her to confront an unanticipated conflict. A first hushed laugh suddenly felt weighted, breaking her rhythm. Could he accept this part of her, this newfound self? The fear threatened to creep back in. Was she strong enough to continue with his gaze on her? Questions spiraled, even as the words flowed from her lips. They became the tether between personal liberation and external judgment. I realized I was the hero of my own story all along, she declared with renewed fervor. And my journey can inspire your own. If my daughters can see me heal and grow, can you imagine the ripple effect that can have? The audience erupted into applause, but in the midst of the acknowledgement, she caught Kevin's eyes again, firmly locked in contemplation. The emotional weight in that moment twisted inside her chest. What if the applause didn't matter to him? With every ounce of resolve, Sarah committed to finishing her tale, her heart racing faster than she had ever anticipated. But now, it held an unmistakable edge, a challenge. Would her bravery be enough to reshape perceptions, both from the audience and her old life lingering in the back? Deep within her, a new question began to form. What if this experience reshaped every relationship in her life, especially with Kevin? The performance was only the beginning. As the lights dimmed and the applause crescendoed, Sarah stood at a crossroads, her words lingering in the air. They were a testament to her journey, yet they loomed with an unanswered question. Could she withstand the aftermath of this revelation? The next moment would define not only her path as a writer but also the intricacies of her relationships. In that uncertainty, she now understood, the story was never just about her. It had always been about connecting, transforming both herself and those around her. What would be required to forge ahead and shatter the barriers that threatened to keep her confined? Would Kevin be a part of her unfolding narrative, or would the past pull them irretrievably apart? As the applause faded, Sarah felt transported back to the diner's fluorescent lights where she had often hidden her dreams behind the clattering plates and murmurs of customers. The echoes of that familiar atmosphere blended with the heady exhilaration of the stage, making her question the weight of her own transformation. Was the connection she felt with the audience real, or simply an illusion fashioned by the moment? Kevin's presence anchored her in uncertainty. His scrutiny felt like an unforgiving spotlight carving deeper lines of doubt around her heart. She could sense the layers of his thoughts churning. He had always been the analytical type, dissecting emotions like he would analyze a job report. What did he think of this version of her? Did he see her as someone more than the motherly persona he'd known, or was she a stranger wearing the mask of strength? She stepped off the stage, each stride dissolving into the cacophony of chatter and lingering applause. Yet, a part of her remained there, suspended in the validation of her performance. The youthful liberation she had tasted was intoxicating. Did she dare take more steps toward this newfound identity? Or would she retreat to the safety of the shadows, where expectations could never waver? A few feet away, Kevin waited, the crease in his brow deepening even as others congratulated her. She approached him cautiously, her heart galloping, each beat question-fueled. "You came," she began, her voice edged with anxiety. "Of course," he replied, a hint of something unreadable in his eyes. "You were incredible." The word hung in the air, a fleeting compliment bound in tentatively spoken realities. She inspected his expression, searching for the underlying message. Was he proud, or simply surprised? "It was nerve-wracking to share such personal aspects of my life," she confessed, the walls she had built around her vulnerability starting to crack. "Why did you feel you had to do that?" The question lingered heavily between them, the implication unnerving her. Did he not understand? Did he still cling to the old narrative of her existence, the one defined more by obligation than aspiration? "Because I can't stay silent anymore," she fired back, gripping the edges of her resolve. "I spent so long battling feelings of inadequacy, sacrificing parts of myself. I refuse to slip back into the shadows." Kevin's expression shifted, the familiar smirk she once found so disarming dulled into contemplation. "You're not the only one affected by that." "I don't," he hesitated, words dancing on the precipice of confrontation. "I don't know if I recognize this new version of you." Her breath caught. This was no mere conversation. It felt like a challenge to navigate the chasm between past and present. "Maybe you're right," she said quietly, a surge of unexpected vulnerability washing over her. Maybe I have to help you see me again, even if it's uncomfortable. As those words escaped her lips, Sarah realized that every moment she had spent hiding her ambition was a moment stolen from her potential, not just as a mother, but as a woman capable of growth. The courage she had summoned on stage was not just for the audience's eyes but for every relationship that mattered, particularly this one. Could Kevin adapt to this change? Would he cling to expectations, or would he discover the fullness of who she had become? The beauty of transformation offers no guarantees, and as she looked into his uncertain eyes, a question simmered between them: what would they become if they both moved forward? The sound of laughter and chatter enveloping the venue became a distant echo, the gravity of their conversation drawing them into a silence weighted with hope and trepidation. Could they rebuild, or would the cracks deepen, leaving space for resentment to thrive? In that moment, Sarah comprehended the impact of her words, their power to forge connections in untested waters. She was no longer just a voice in the crowd. She was stepping into the light of her own story, echoing with the promise of reconciliation. As she weighed those possibilities, the path stretched ahead, a road fraught with risk, yet imbued with potential. What would happen if she shared her newfound purpose more boldly? What if Kevin stepped onto that path with her, hand in hand? There was only one way to find out, but deep within, Sarah understood that unveiling her truth was just the start. The real test would be the journey that followed, entangled and intimate, leading them toward an uncertain future. The silence settled between them, thick with unspoken thoughts and expectations. Sarah felt as if they were both standing on a precipice, peering into an abyss filled with potential and fear. She shifted her weight, her mind racing through every doubt she'd tucked away during years of performing her roles with precision and care. "I think I know what you're feeling," she ventured, steering the conversation in a vulnerable direction, a place she'd shied away from. "You're not just grappling with who I've become but also with who you are in relation to this change." Her voice trembled slightly, breaking the bravado she had crafted on stage. Kevin's eyes darkened, reflecting turbulence. "I've always supported you, Sarah. But this is different. I don't know how to be part of this new chapter." His honesty rattled her. She had expected resistance but not the depth of his uncertainty. To him, she might not be just any performer but a person whom he had tethered his life to, defined by safety and predictability. The weight of what she had laid bare now felt heavy and critical. "Then let us discover it together," she countered, her conviction igniting a fire within her. "Let us navigate this. If I can find the strength to stand on that stage, to bare my soul, surely we can tackle the uncertainties together." The challenge hung in the air, and she felt such resolve that she wanted to reach out and grasp it firmly. But what if he hesitated? What if he wasn't ready to meet her halfway? A shiver of doubt brushed against her newfound strength. The lingering fears swelled, a cocktail of inadequacy and bold ambition. Would exposing her true self push him away instead of drawing them closer? Kevin's lip curled slightly as he considered her words, a silent storm flickering in his gaze. "I guess we have to be honest about what we want." He shifted, the dialogue transforming from confrontation to exploration. "This new version of you, I need to understand it more. I've always seen you in a certain light. Now, I'm not sure how to adjust my perspective." "Then help me show you who I really am," she urged, feeling the urgency rise within her. "I can't keep pretending to be someone I'm not. This is me, not just a performer but a woman who wants more." A reflective pause ensued, her heart beating wildly against the truth she was finally embracing. The possibility of Kevin not accepting this change clawed at her, but the prospect of silently retreating into her former self felt even worse. It was time for clarity where ambiguity had lingered too long. "I want to support you," he finally replied, each word loaded with the weight of seriousness. "But I need you to understand what this means. I'm still processing who I am in relation to your evolution." His admission left Sarah reeling. This wasn't merely about her journey, it was a crucible to test the very fabric of their relationship. Could he really appreciate her transformation? Did she have it within her to guide him through his resistance? She considered her own fears as they stood on this brink, the leap of faith, the risk of change, the commitment to growth. They could become something extraordinary if only they could navigate these waters together, but what lay beneath could just as well drag them down. Finally, Sarah whispered, "Let us face it together, then." There was a decisive strength pooling inside her. She was reaching beyond her insecurities, opening the door to hope, albeit tinged with the threat of vulnerability. In their silence, once again charged, Sarah felt a subtle burgeoning of trust. Perhaps they could discover a new kind of closeness, one rooted not in fear but in the evolution of their connection. As they exchanged uncertain glances, she understood they stood not at the edge of a chasm but at the threshold of possibility. Yet, with this horrendous uncertainty, another thought slipped into her mind. She had to confront not just her fears but also the reactions of those very closest to them who would hear her truth. What would happen when their families found out about the changes and challenges she desired? The moment to reveal her intentions to them would test more than her strength. It would test the core belief of those around her as well. Sarah's heart raced, deciding she had to prepare for the conversation that would follow. How would she navigate the complexities of her new aspirations rather than let doubts win? What if it stirred more questions than answers? Would it drive her family to understand her or push them further away? Determination coursing through her, she knew that the real journey awaited. There were steeper cliffs to scale, and she could feel the impending confrontation lurking just ahead. Would stepping into her truth illuminate a path for them all, or just set them on divergent roads? The next step loomed before Sarah like a vast, open highway stretching into the unknown. She stepped away from Kevin, creating space to think. She needed to articulate her ambitions, to unearth the deep-rooted beliefs she harbored about success, commitment, and identity not just for herself, but for everyone intertwined in this metamorphosis. What would happen when she broadcasted her dreams? In her mind, she rehearsed the dialogue she would have with her family, envisioning their reactions, their questions, their doubts, but also their support. She imagined her mother's stern frown transforming into comprehension, and her father's defensive stance softening into pride. Each scenario felt entwined with a strand of optimism, coaxing her away from the edge of her fears. Yet, those hopeful visions were trampled by the fearful specter of rejection. In the quiet of her apartment, Sarah wrestled with the darker thoughts that curled around her ambitions, whispering doubts that specialized in self-sabotage. What if they believed she was foolish for chasing this dream? What if they pitted her for stepping outside the conventional track? Or worse yet, what if they deemed this exploration a reckless abandonment of her responsibilities? Her heart thudded like an uncertain drumbeat in her chest, every pulse a reminder of what was at stake. She was not alone in this endeavor. She had Kevin's tentative support, but would that be enough when family sentiments swirled in the mix? With each question, the path ahead narrowed, thickening with apprehension. Sarah walked into the kitchen, absently pouring a cup of coffee, the steam spiraling upward like her swirling thoughts. Face to face with the coffee maker, an idea struck her. This confrontation with her family could be framed not merely as a discussion of herself but as a collaborative dialogue about their shared history, their past expectations, and her evolving desires. Inspired, she took a seat with her cup. She began crafting a mental map of the evening she would orchestrate, a family dinner where she could introduce her newfound aspirations with the warmth of nostalgia. She would begin by recounting the stories that had shaped her, sharing childhood dreams and the golden moments when she had felt most authentic. More importantly, she would ask them to share their dreams, their disappointments. This wasn't just her moment, it was an opening for communication, an invitation to share vulnerabilities under the familiar roof that bound them. Glancing at Kevin, who was now scrolling thoughtfully on his phone, she felt an unexpected surge of clarity. The further they ventured down this path together, the more she realized that understanding was not limited to her alone but extended to everyone she loved. Every revelation was an opportunity not only to solidify her identity but to redefine her connections. She leaned back, integrating this new perspective as her resolve strengthened. This evening would not merely be about unveiling her aspirations, it would test her capacity to gather support and to redefine her relationships against a backdrop of fear. As she filled her mind with reminders of who she was and could become, a voice broke through her thoughts. "What are you thinking about?" Kevin's voice was soft yet probing, an anchor against the brewing storm of her emotions. "I have a plan," she said, a whisper of excitement lacing her words. "It can't be a one-sided declaration. I want to invite them into this journey to help them see that this is not just about me but about all of us evolving. His brow raised in intrigued surprise. You're going to tell them? How are you going to manage that? I'll frame it as a conversation about dreams and growth, she replied. It's time they see me as more than the roles I've played. It's not enough to shine a light on what I want next. I want them to understand why it matters. Kevin processed her words, the uncertainty in his eyes now giving way to something more resolute. I admire that. It sounds ambitious. Just remember, not everyone will understand right away. I know, she said, feeling the weight of uncertainty, but also a concurrent rush of empowerment. But I can't hide my truth anymore. It's my time to rise fully into this version of myself. I can only hope they lean in and truly listen. As determination churned within her, she realized that the path she envisioned required courage and an openness to possible discomfort. Each bolt of adrenaline fueled her realization. Stepping into her truth might shine light on hidden fears for them all, forcing confrontations that were perhaps long overdue. Tomorrow, then? Kevin prompted. Tomorrow, she affirmed, steadying herself for the challenge ahead. Unbeknownst to them, this proposal may ignite difficult conversations intertwining dreams, regrets, and potentials echoing sentiments that had long lingered in silence. With a deep breath, she understood they would all be confronting more than just her aspirations. They would grapple with the very fabric of what it meant to evolve. How would acceptance mesh with resistance within her family's dynamics once confronted face to face? The notion loomed like a storm on the horizon, and Sarah understood tomorrow would test not only her resolve but the resilience of their bonds in ways she couldn't yet fully comprehend. As dawn broke the following day, Sarah's heart raced in a rhythm that matched the steady march of sunlight spilling through her window. The anticipation clawed at her, forbidding any semblance of calm. It was the day she had eagerly anticipated and simultaneously dreaded, poised at the balancing point between challenge and opportunity. She moved about her apartment, preparing for the dinner that would serve as a stage for her revelations. The smell of sautéing vegetables filled the air, grounding her in the task at hand, but her mind twirled with fragmented thoughts about what was to come. Chopping carrots and onions, she forced the energy to cut through her anxieties, each slice a deliberate motion toward her goal. As she set the table, each plate and glass was imbued with the significance of her intentions. This meal wasn't merely about nourishment, it was a conduit for communication, a canvas upon which she would paint her aspirations. She wanted her family to grasp the metamorphosis she dreamed of, the one that began to unfurl within her, but would they accept the message without faltering? When the doorbell rang, her heart flipped. She wiped her hands on a kitchen towel, taking a moment to inhale deeply. As she opened the door, she was met with the familiar faces of her family, each carrying their own stories folded neatly beneath the surface, a blend of excitement, curiosity, and perhaps, skepticism. "Wow, it smells incredible in here," her mother exclaimed, stepping forward with a warm embrace. It was a gesture steeped in history, one that hadn't signified much until that very moment, the warmth igniting an unexpected seed of comfort within Sarah. With everyone settled around the table, laughter and conversation flowed like the wine that accompanied their meal. They talked of mundane topics ranging from her brother's recent promotion to her father's gardening conquests, but Sarah felt the weight of her own words, pressing against her chest, waiting for the right moment to break free. Each boisterous laugh and playful jab felt both grounding and isolating, as her mind drummed a fervent reminder that tonight was pivotal. At last, the rhythms of casual conversation slowed, and Sarah sensed the curtain rising on her moment. Taking a deep breath, she cleared her throat, the subtle sound coaxing shifting eyes toward her. "Can I share something important with you all?" Their faces turned, curiosity now eclipsing the previous merriment. Here it was the precipice of vulnerability. "I've been thinking about what really matters to me and where I see myself heading, and it involves pursuing some dreams I've put on hold for too long." Her words tumbled forth, each syllable laden with the gravity of her intent. The clatter of cutlery fell silent, and Sarah swiftly detailed the vision she had been nurturing. She spoke of college courses she had longed to explore, creative paths she intended to tread, and the struggle of navigating her role as a mother while sifting through the layers of her own identity. She reasoned her ambitions with each unfolding sentence, attempting to weave a narrative that included them the emotional tapestry of their shared past. Yet as she progressed, she could feel resistance, like an electric charge sparking in the air. Their initial silence soon gave way to whispered exchanges. "But Sarah, what about the responsibilities?" her father interjected, the question ringing with the echo of an age-old battle. It was the oldest, most familiar refrain. A pit tightened in her stomach, but she steadied herself, recognizing that this was the actual crossroads of the evening. "I understand, Dad," she replied, adopting a gentler tone. "But I can't bury my aspirations under the weight of responsibility. I am more than those roles. I want to evolve, to grow into someone who can be both a devoted mother and a fulfilled individual." To her surprise, the room filled with a weighty tension that both frustrated and exhilarated her. This wasn't merely a sharing of dreams, it was an invitation for conflict, revealing the unspoken struggles that each family member carried within. The atmosphere, crammed with air thickened by fear and possibility, seemed to mirror the turmoil in Sarah's heart. Her mother, brow furrowed in concentration, probed, "But what if this takes you away from us? What if it changes who you are fundamentally?" Change hung like an elusive specter in the air, looming over them, yet the more she confronted it, the more invigorated she felt. "I believe it will enhance who I am, not diminish it," she countered, conviction igniting her voice. "Seeing me pursue my potential can only show us all what is possible." As they exchanged probing gazes, the atmosphere shifted. The uncertainty became palpable, sparking more than just doubt. It hinted at the possibility of acceptance. But as her family continued to unwrap their fears and concerns, the conversation transformed. Each response revealed rifts but also cracks of understanding that could potentially mend their connections. Just as they began to grapple with the shifting dynamics of their relationship, a strong voice emerged, a voice she had feared but needed to confront. It was her brother. "Sarah, what if you don't succeed? What then?" The question sliced through them all, sharp and exacting, forcing Sarah to confront the core of her ambitions. This was the moment she feared, thrusting open the door to her insecurities. Would her plans collapse into a shadow of her dreams? As her mind raced, clamoring for a response, she felt the pivotal weight balance on the edge of a knife. How she responded now might reshape not only her identity but the very fabric of their familial bond. "Sometimes, the risk of failure is worth the pursuit of one's own truth," she ultimately proclaimed, a conviction emerging against the storm of doubt surrounding them. "I guess the real question is, are we all willing to embrace the uncertainty that comes with growth?" Outside, storm clouds loomed on the horizon, reflecting the simmering tensions inside. What would this moment become? Would it lay the groundwork for a new familial understanding, or would resistance build walls that Sarah couldn't climb over? As she pondered the crossroads before her, the next move hung heavily in the air, and she realized this journey of revelation had only just begun. In the hours that followed the dinner, Sarah found herself wrapped in quiet reflection, the weight of the conversation settling into her bones like an unwelcome guest. She replayed her words, the confidence, the passion, but beneath it lay a nagging uncertainty, the question of whether she could truly balance her aspirations against the family dynamics tested that evening. Difficult conversations had an uncanny ability to peel back layers, revealing vulnerabilities she had long kept hidden. Determined to move beyond the discomfort, Sarah awoke the next morning with a renewed sense of purpose. She hadn't fully anticipated the gravity of her dreams. They weren't mere whims but a part of her identity. She wanted to prove to herself, and to her family, that stepping into her truth was not only possible but essential for her growth. As the sun broke over the horizon, she clawed through her daily routine, her mind clicking through a mental checklist of possibilities. She pulled out an old notebook she had kept since college, pages filled with aspirations that had gathered dust, weighing her down. Ideas raced through her head, igniting sparks of energy she hadn't felt in years. With a pen poised over the yellowed pages, she decided to craft a new mission statement, a personal manifesto that would ground her ambitions. What did she want? She engaged in a rigorous internal dialogue as each word flowed onto the page. She wanted to be more than a spectator in her own life. She envisioned herself as an advocate for her passions, a pioneer of her own experiences. Gain the education, she wrote. Pursue the creative outlets. And underneath, she penned a third line that made her stomach twist with nerves: embrace the potential for failure. Failure, an ugly word that had lived in the shadows of her thoughts, wielding power over her choices. Yet, as she reflected deeper, she realized that failure wasn't an end, it was a stepping stone, an ugly truth that so many successful people danced with daily. There was beauty in trying, in failing, and rising again. With each item scrawled onto her manifesto, Sarah felt the initial layers of self-doubt begin to peel away. Each word was a declaration and assertion of her commitment to herself. It was also a pointed reminder that professional development didn't require neglecting her family. Rather, it could serve as a living example of resilience for her children. Fueled with purpose, she made her way to the local community college that very afternoon. The decision to enroll wasn't an easy one. It meant embarking on college courses that could stretch her thin timeways, but the realization had hit her: if she didn't take this step now, when would she? As she entered the administrative office, the boring gray walls seemed to hum with the possibilities surrounding her. The enrollment process felt uncharacteristically exhilarating. When she met with the academic advisor, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, Sarah shared her aspirations with an authenticity that surprised even herself. "I want to explore art and business," she said, the words flowing forth. "I've always had this desire to merge creativity with entrepreneurship, but have pushed it aside for too long." Her advisor smiled, nodding in understanding. Starting off exploring these paths can lead to some surprising opportunities. Just remember, the journey can be as vital as the destination. Encouraged by this affirmation, Sarah decided to commit to her first course, a class in basic graphic design. While it was just a single step on her newly outlined path, it felt monumental. There was a world waiting for her within those walls, brimming with potential and growth if only she would step into it. Yet as the evening rolled around, Sarah returned home, heart pounding with excitement and trepidation. Would her decision be met with the same wonder she felt inside? As she stepped into the living room, her family was gathered, laughter echoing amid the familiar din of home life. But as they turned to her, she sensed that unveiling her plans would pose yet another test of her resolve. She had barely started to articulate her excitement about the graphic design course when her father, still clinging to the conversations of the previous night, cut in. "But can you really balance all this? Isn't it a big gamble?" The question echoed the doubts that crept in whenever she pursued bold decisions. Her father's concern mirrored her insecurities. Inside, she wrestled with the burgeoning tension, remembering her earlier resolve. It was time to stand firm at this new crossroads. "I'm betting on myself," she replied firmly, her voice crystallizing in resolve. "And I refuse to let fear dictate my decisions going forward." With this, Sarah understood that with newfound aspirations comes the challenge of embracing her own worth against familial apprehensions. Would her journey into the realm of the unknown solidify her identity or create more chaos amongst those she loved? As she looked around the room, anticipation surged through her. Would she find the support she so desperately craved, or would doubt stand as a barricade between her dreams and her family? The question loomed as dark clouds gathered once more on the horizon, a storm brewing both outside and within. As Sarah sat at the dining table, the echoes of uncertainty still fresh, she felt an undeniable need to express her truth. No longer would she allow fear to define her path. With the moment ripe for revelation, she steadied her breath and recounted her recent endeavors. "I'm taking a graphic design class," she announced, the words tumbling forth like the lapping waves of the ocean, each one clearer and bolder than the last. "It's a step toward reclaiming my dreams, a chance to explore my creativity in ways I've never allowed myself before." The room fell silent, the only sound the ticking of the clock on the wall, a steady reminder of time moving forward. As her family absorbed her words, she saw multiple emotions play across their faces: curiosity, disbelief, admiration combined with concern as her father opened his mouth, ready to voice another cautionary tale. "Sarah, don't you think you might be setting yourself up for disappointment?" he interjected. "I used to think that way," she responded, a newfound confidence firming her voice. "But I've realized that disappointment is part of the process. This journey is about exploring my potential, whatever that may mean for my future." She looked around the table, seeking understanding in the eyes of her mother, her brother, and Kevin. Would they see her strength and commitment, or would they dwell in the shadows of their doubts? Her mother finally spoke, her expression softening. "It's just worrying, honey. You already juggle so much. Are you sure you want to add to that?" "Mom," Sarah said, her voice steady, grounded. "This isn't just about adding to my plate. This is about rediscovering who I am at my core. For years, I've pushed aside ambitions and dreams for the sake of comfort and certainty. I want to show Lily and Jake that it's okay to seek fulfillment even if that means facing the unknown." At that moment, heavy tension hung thick in the air, each family member's thoughts materializing like wisps of smoke that could be cut through. Their concerns were valid, shadowed by love and protectiveness, but Sarah was resolute she needed to walk this path. "What if you succeed?" Kevin surprised her by asking, his eyes glimmering with intrigue as he leaned closer. "What doors could open for you?" His question seemed to shift the atmosphere, awakening a sense of possibility that had long been dormant. Sarah could feel the collective awakening take root. "I could create, innovate, and potentially turn my passions into a business," she explained, excitement bubbling beneath apprehension. "I envision exploring avenues where art meets entrepreneurship, helping others express their visions, together creating connections that inspire." Her father's furrowed brow relaxed, revealing a flickering glimmer of interest. Still cautious, he murmured, "Well, that sounds ambitious." "Because it is," she replied, a smile creeping onto her face. "And I want you all to believe in that ambition, too. By taking this leap, I am showing my kids that even failures can lead to growth, rather than limit possibilities." The room pulsated with a newfound energy, and her brother's voice broke through, its timbre betraying his surprise. "I didn't know you felt this way. It's cool seeing you that determined. I want to support you, Sarah." With those words, warmth flooded Sarah's heart as she recognized the pivotal shift occurring around her. Acceptance rather than conflict hovered in the air like a fragile embrace. As they delved deeper into her plans, engaging in conversations that revealed personal fears and aspirations, laughter and support began to intertwine, creating a shared resolve. They understood her journey was inextricably linked to their family's growth, each revelation a step closer to fostering an environment rooted in resilience and encouragement. That evening, Sarah's family gathered around her, bearing ready smiles, tentative yet determined to explore the road ahead together. They would walk this path, intertwining dreams with reality, anchoring each other through turbulent waves. Sarah no longer needed to carry this weight alone. As the days unfolded, she embarked on her classes where each lesson revealed more than design principles but the very foundation of herself she had long buried. Color theory ignited her artistic vision, while practical projects challenged her problem-solving skills. With each assignment, Sarah conquered the fears that had shadowed her ambitions, feeling a surge of accomplishment with every completed task. Her classmates' encouragement boosted her confidence. As her designs blossomed, so too did her belief in her capacity for success. Simultaneously, the family dynamics evolved as they embraced new connections. Wednesday game nights replaced former distant conversations. They shared their aspirations and fears over pizza, laughter reverberating through their home. One evening, as Sarah unveiled an art piece inspired by her journey, Kevin looked at her with admiration that stirred something profound within her. "You're really stepping into this," he commented, pride shimmering in his voice. "It's inspiring watching you chase after your truth." In that moment, Sarah recognized that she wasn't merely embracing her role as a mother, employee, or daughter, she was stepping into the fullness of who she was meant to be. Each class brought her closer to realizing dreams she had long cast aside. By sharing those steps with her family, she redefined the notion of motherhood, illustrating that pursuing personal goals could breathe new life into their connections, rather than diminish them. Days turned to weeks, and with every unveiling of her creations and discussions over the dinner table, Sarah's confidence solidified like the canvases she painted. Her family witnessed her growth and, in turn, began to embrace their own ambitions, finding joy in the collective journey. It would take time and patience to cultivate this new dynamic, but Sarah finally felt true fulfillment blooming in her life. Their journey would not be without challenges, as life often threw obstacles in unexpected pathways. Yet, together they stood resilient, with a shared commitment to pursue their truths, to celebrate dreams, even if those dreams shifted over time. As summer wound into fall, Sarah stood at her dining table, not just crafting artistic pieces, but weaving the fabric of memories with her family. They had transformed the house into a home filled with creativity, laughter, and mutual support. "Are you ready for this?" She turned to Kevin, eyes sparkling with anticipation as he prepared for a collaborative art show with her. "I've never been more ready," he replied, sharing in her excitement. As she browsed through her designs, she realized they represented more than creativity. They were tangible proof of the choices she made to embrace her truth after years of feeling invisible. That art show, where her work intermingled with her family's, would unveil the transformation in ways they couldn't yet see. It was more than a showcase, it was a celebration of evolution, a platform to inspire not just the community but each other. In sharing their journeys, she was now not just telling a narrative, but living it. She had conquered her doubts, embraced her dreams, and shown everyone the beauty of stepping fully into one's own truth. This was Sarah Thompson, the artist, the mother, the storyteller, a woman reborn, ready to face the next chapter, hand in hand with her family. The story was only just beginning. Now, here is your urgent call to action. You need to subscribe now to the channel to keep your heart fueled with exclusive emotional stories that inspire. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help these powerful narratives reach more hearts. Comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's incredible journey, and don't hold back. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and embark on their own transformative paths. This is the moment to show your support and spread the message that pursuing dreams can lead to remarkable transformations. Don't wait even one more second. Get involved and be part of the journey.